Imagine having picked up your GCSE papers, you get an opportunity to look through your papers and you start to spot so many silly mistakes that you could have easily avoided. Well, in this video, I'm going to share with you 5 common mistakes that students make. If they avoid this, they can significantly improve their overall mark. So here we go, listen up. Number 1, misreading the question. It's very easy, whilst reading a question, our brain starts to recognize, hey, we've seen this question before, we've seen similar things before. And our mind starts creating its own question and starts to insert things that are not really there. So we are answering a question that the actual question that we are doing isn't really asking us. Perhaps this time round, it wanted us to do something slightly different. But because we let our memory and our mind kind of take over, we don't really get all the marks and answer the question correctly. So don't let your excitement get the better of you. For example, finding the percentage of something or finding the percentage of something. Very, very similar sounding words, easily be confusing for some students and they may do the wrong thing. Number 2, not showing your working out. Always show your calculations and reasoning, how you got to the answer. Make sure your working out is clearly laid out. Even if your final answer is incorrect, working out can gain you marks. This is why teachers always recommend that you use mark schemes so you can see how the different marks are awarded for different stages in your answer. Common mistake number 3, check that you are using the correct units in a question. Some questions might require you to convert units from various units into one common unit. For example, an answer might require you to give it in meters instead of centimeters. And if you don't, it will cost you marks. For example, recently I was doing a question with some of my students and I realized at the end that the final answer required me to convert something that was in centimeter cubed into meters cubed. And I only realized this because I have this habit of going back to a question, having completed the answer, and just doing another reading of it, and I spotted it then. So make sure that you pay good attention on questions where they are using different units. Number 4, using a calculator. In the calculator papers, we are expected to do some very complex calculations sometimes. For example, if you take the cosine rule for finding the lengths of sides, you are squaring, you are adding, you are taking away, you've got the cos with its brackets, and after all of that, you've got to square root the answer. Some calculators may handle this differently. And what I do with my students is I teach them to do things separately and not put everything into one go on a calculator, because different calculators may throw out different answers because of the way different brands handle the syntax. I always say to my students, make sure that you are familiar with your calculator and take into the exam the calculator that you have been used to for all this time. Don't be like that student who buys a new calculator just in time for the exam, a calculator that they've never used before, that they're not familiar with, and they start struggling in the exam hall because those students suddenly realize that this calculator doesn't handle the calculations that they're used to. Or perhaps they don't even notice that it's giving out wrong answers because they were supposed to add a bracket or close a bracket or something like that. Not all the calculators are the same. There are subtle differences. And if you've seen the new Casio calculators, they can be quite a nightmare because the SD button isn't where it was on those old calculators. Finally, number 5, panicking and leaving out questions altogether. Yes, it happens sometimes when students look at a question and they're like, you know what, I totally can't do this question and I'm just going to leave it out. Leaving out a question benefits no one. If this does happen to you, what I recommend is you try to stay calm and attempt all the questions. Even if you can't complete a question fully, start a question. You never know where your mark might come from. It might be just because you expanded a bracket that you pick up 1 mark. So don't leave any questions unanswered. Remember, careful reading, thorough working out, and time management are crucial for success in your GCSE Maths exams. I wish you guys all the best and I'll see you in the next one.